Welcome to the Success Series podcast, brought to you by the Presto Post. This show is all about the secrets, recipes and philosophies of some of the world's most famous people, be them composers, actors, actresses, entrepreneurs, authors, painters, investors, philosophers, journalists, scientists, you name it. Each episode features one person and typically 7 to 10 separate pieces of advice. These podcasts are not done by us, however. What we do instead is comb the internet platforms for any recordings and audio clips that already exist, study them, and then separate the wheat from the chaff. These podcasts are the wheat, or as we like to call them, nutritious audio snacks. The golden number is 7. This is the number of lessons we try to fit into each podcast, but inevitably we struggle to keep within that number. Sometimes there is just too much to cram into 7, that we have no choice but to include 10 or more. Besides, are not rules made to be broken? And seeing as we created that rule in the first place, well... Anyway, onto the show. On today's show we have advice and counsel from British chef Jamie Oliver. Jamie is one of the most famous people in the food industry. After hitting the scene all the way back in 1999 with his first show, The Naked Chef, he has gone on to produce several very successful TV series, run a number of best-selling books, start the hugely popular YouTube channel FoodTube and its spin-off DrinksTube, and opened 3 different restaurant brands, Jamie's Italian, 15 and Barbacoa, in over 70 different locations, about a third of which are overseas. Jamie first made his name outside of Britain when he started campaigning against poorly nutritious school dinners. After making headway in the UK with his school dinners campaign, he decided he had bigger fish to fry. Where? In the US of A. From day one, he has been a proponent of fresh, home-cooked, nutritious food. His passion naturally brought the problem of poorly nutritious school meals to his attention. Having already made a name for himself in the UK, he was able to make substantial progress. In the US, however, it was a different story. You can read all about his run-ins with certain states overseas, but for now, let's say that the school governors were not his biggest fans. Nevertheless, his pursuits in both the UK and USA resulted in a momentous and permanent shift in public awareness of the importance of healthy eating. It also led to the formation of the Food Revolution Day, an internationally celebrated day dedicated to increasing awareness of everything food health related. In 2003, he was awarded an MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours. He received the TED Prize in 2010 for his speech Teach Every Child About Food, which has thus far received almost 9 million views, and he has a net worth of about £300 million. You can find him on all the socials, where he keeps impressively up to date, especially on Instagram, where he makes at least one personal post every day, and several other automatic ones, it appears. And with that, here are 9 wadges, to use a Jamie phrase. Here are 9 wadges of advice from the UK's favourite chef, Jamie Oliver. Jamie has quite a scattered way of explaining. That is, he answers questions in quite a roundabout way, and sometimes never returns to his original point. So it's been rather the task to sort through his many interviews and videos in order to find the real good stuff. And even then, distilling it down so that the episode still qualifies as short has been, let's say, quite difficult. Nevertheless, we have finished our scouring of the interwebs and now present to you the first wadge of counsel from Jamie. An important part of success, or just growth of any type, is failure. As you move through life, you will make mistakes, maybe some very costly ones, but that is good because it means you are trying to do something. Mistakes are important. Failure is important, as long as you get back on the horse. Someone very wise once said, if mistakes aren't being made, then decisions aren't being made. And that is a big mistake. The lesson? Get uncomfortable.
And if you're a businessman, you can make some very humbling mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes.
Like what?
Well, I've done a bunch of stuff that's lost me a load of money because it wasn't right, wasn't done in the right way, the right tone. It took something simple and kind of had a blank bit of paper and got carried away with being creative. I'm quite a creative person. And even though I'm surrounded by good people and I'm generally pretty bang on most of the time, you know, everyone can screw up, and I've had my fair share of that. But I think at the same time, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and a boss, I think it's really healthy to have 10% of your budget to screw up.
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't got at least 10%, you're not risking enough. You know, I think 10% is whether it's making TV or if, you know, I think it's important to, if you're comfortable, you're not pushing yourself.
Yeah.
My best work has always come from me being uncomfortable.
Yeah. I feel the same way. It is about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and there's a stigma attached to failure, right? That, oh, you know, you failed once, and so if, you know, you can't try again.
I mean, like, the thing is, like, for instance, you can take the best people in the world and do a beautiful job and over deliver and undercharge, and if you haven't got the magic right, it won't work.
Yeah.
And I've done that. And it's very humbling, and it's good. It means you have to really focus on just simplicity and not get even when you're a known brand, and even if you over deliver on all the boxes, you can still get it wrong because you just got it. It's not quite right. It's not sitting right with the public. So, you know, I think, and at the same time, in the last 5 years, you know, I've created 8,000 jobs and opened 40 restaurants and managed to sort of float the ship in a fairly successful direction. But it's been incredibly hard.
Aimed at entrepreneurial go-getters specifically, but also applicable to anyone trying to do something. Number 2, quite simply, is this. You already probably know what you need to be doing. Well, as hard as it sounds, go do it. Do what you need to do every day, show up, and opportunities will present themselves, just as long as you stay open to them. Again, to get anywhere in life, you first have to show up.
So how did you transition from, you know, being someone who makes great food to sort of celebrity status, getting to TV and doing your thing? How did you get discovered?
Well, it wasn't intentional. I didn't want to get on TV. I think the worst people are the ones that want to get on TV. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, you just have to be in a position where you're working somewhere of interest and things should just happen, you know, and I think that's the best way to look at it. For me personally, I was called in on a day when someone was off sick. I was covering a particularly exciting part of the kitchen, which was called Hots 2, which was like the fritto misto, the risotto, the pasta, and the slow cooked meats. So I had really quick cooking stuff that would start and finish in a commercial kitchen in 1.5 minutes. Yeah. So it's very colourful, very quick, and a kind of a TV maker's dream.
Sure.
And there was a film crew there that night doing a documentary about the restaurant that we worked in, which was called the River Cafe, which is, you know, probably one of the most famous restaurants in England. And anyway, fast forward 6 months, you know, they filmed everyone. It wasn't just me, they filmed everyone.
Yeah, but right place, right time, right?
Yeah, totally. And I wasn't even supposed to be on that night. But 6 months later, they broadcast the show and I was all over it. The phone call started the next day and they're like, who's this kid? And I'd made this fairly technically challenging pasta called a rotolo, where you make a big sheet of pasta and fill it with spinach, braised spinach and ricotta and roll it all up. And, you know, so they were kind of, I was a baby.
Yeah.
I was technically pretty good, but I was a baby. I was 20 years old.
Yeah, but like a savant. I mean, you're a natural.
Well, I guess everyone always said I looked like a baby, but I had old man's hands, you know, and I got big old butcher's hands, you know. And I think when you've been doing stuff for 10 years, whether you're 10 to 20 or 20 to 30 or 30 to 40, like the way you hold stuff and the way you do stuff and the sort of economies of movement, and you just don't muck about. When you're a novice and you're sort of like all over.
Like I was in there.
Yeah.
Well, awkward.
It's you know what I mean? So I guess that was my USP, like young and could cook and it all, the Naked Chef was born, really. And there's been a lot of luck on the way, but I've worked really hard and sort of tried to go. I got kind of pretty bored of the celeb-y stuff and the structure of it and the papers and the media. I got pretty bored of it and very cynical about it quite early. So about 4 years in, I started to realise it was about what I said no to that became more important than what I said yes to.
You know, I want to underscore what you just said. You know, a lot of people watch this show, they're entrepreneurs, they have their own business, and whether it's, you know, food related or otherwise, that's what you just said is gold. Being able to say no, understanding, you know, picking the right project, I think is really key.
Number 3. There are different types of intelligence, and it may just be that so far in life you haven't found the right expression for your own type. Maybe you know what it is, but you're holding back. Perhaps you're waiting for the right opportunity, or perhaps you're just unsure. The truth is, IQ, though it may be used to measure intelligence in the general sense, does not correlate well with worldly success or the ability to make a difference in the world, just as it doesn't correlate well with happiness, meaning, purpose, and fulfillment and all these things. Watch number 3 then is in 2 parts. First is worry more about care and passion than you do about intelligence and academia. Skills can be learned, attitude, not so much.
I loved school. I really loved school. It was like a glorified youth club. I had nothing to offer at school. I didn't learn much about myself at school. Didn't feel compelled to excel or put extra effort into any class at school. But I liked hanging out with my mates. I didn't bunk off because I was happy. You know, it's like almost like the one hardest ingredient of school is like if the kid's happy, like you've got all the permission to do everything else. I was really happy, but nothing else happened. And it was a bit of a weird one as well because like when I was at school, like dyslexia was never really, you were either almost blind or not dyslexic. So I was just put in special needs, you know, I was just like a thick kid. So, you know, whereas now my nephews kind of get a proper rundown, they know so much more about their particular type of help they need, they get the assistance, they don't necessarily get dragged out of class and put in a blooming room at the top of the school like a sort of dunce, do you know what I mean? So it was a bit of a stigma when I was at school. It didn't bother me because I was one of the bigger boys, but I mean, it wasn't great for self-esteem really. They all said the same thing, lovely boy, you know, polite, respectable, you know, I got on with the teachers, but, you know, that's why I love the debate about education. You know, who said education is what we say it is? Oh, like a couple of dudes from 500 years ago sort of set up the structure of it, English, maths, science. Okay, so if you're not very good at black and white and sort of traditional academia, you're thick, therefore you have no value, or you know. So for me personally, I've always been passionate since leaving school about, well, there's different types of intelligence and everyone has their ability to be brilliant, and it's just a matter of, you know, school really should be about facilitating kids to find their sort of inner genius and their inner confidence and help them with life skills and just being good people, you know, whereas actually school is quite rigid. Everything's based on measurement, and every child is different, every town, every school is different, every part of the country is different. So there's no way of controlling it. So really it becomes more about culture than sort of like hard measurement. And, you know, quite a few of well, there was only 5 people in my special needs class, but 3 of them have done really well. I know people that left school with A's and A's that are really on just above minimum wage. Personally, I think my strengths is just a complete obsession to any expression of empowering people and teaching people to cook. And it's that simple. Whether it's a book, the paper it's on, the photographer we use, sitting next to, you know, 15 years later, the effort on design, how we lay out a page to try and empower Billy from Bognor to be able to achieve something, you know, that's really affordable that a king would be happy to eat. You know, I mean, ultimately that is what it comes down to for me. You know, we've got a massive problem in this country with under-mentored, under-loved kids that don't see that you could be good at something very simple and turn it into a life's work that you enjoy, that makes you want to get out of bed with a spark in your eye.
The second part is, so what if others don't appreciate or support the path that you want to walk? If it is what you care about or are good at, it may be exactly what you need to do.
It was also quite a funny time because all of my mates, and I had lots, I mean, I'm still friends with 80% of my school year, you know, and we were a tight bunch, but all of my mates thought that being a chef was just the stupidest, crappiest sort of job, really. You know, you just get loads, you just be called a puff, you know, you get called terrible things just for wanting to be a chef. And it's quite ironic now because I know I'm biased, but cooking is just the most incredible job, the most incredible industry that can diversify in so many ways. I mean, cooking's like technology. I mean, it touches everything. So I couldn't be prouder of my industry, but my friends that were taking the piss out of me all wanted to be city boys and traders and estate agents, right. Which, to be honest, I'm not that keen on those people now. So they kind of became my nightmare, and then cooking kind of went through a renaissance, you know. Cooking in those days was for girls, and I went to an all-boys school. They would never teach cooking, no way. So still quite sexist in a way.
If you want to achieve big things in life, or just anything significant, you're going to have to juggle more than you can handle. And whether you can juggle or not doesn't matter, neither. If there is something you want to do, you have no choice but to juggle. And if that something you want to do is something big, you can be sure it is not going to be smooth, cute little balls that you're juggling, but knives, the odd chainsaw, a couple of wild cats, water balloons, petrol bombs, porcelain, hot coals and $100 bills. In other words, you'll be dealing with many different and testing personalities, mechanical problems, confusing finances, stress, technical problems, tiredness, sickness, semantic problems, fake news, adversaries, competition, more problems, the feeling of hopelessness, depression, and more problems, frustrating negotiations, phases of no progress, many a backward step, and even more problems. This is what it means to take responsibility. Still interested in changing the world? Good. But even if not, if you're just the kind of person who has places they want to go, and since you're listening to this, you most likely are, learning to juggle, or as Jamie puts it, learning to wrestle with an octopus, is really the difference between sinking and swimming. In the clip that follows, Jamie uses some rather anti-family friendly language, let's say. The reason I think is that it appears he's just on a long shift in the kitchen, and the language of the kitchen is 99% foul. The reasons for this can be discussed another time, or just go and ask one of your friends who's a chef, maybe. But if you want a real glimpse, stand next to a kitchen next time you're eating out on a busy night. Then it will all make sense. As Jamie highlights, one way to increase your chances of winning the fight with the mighty octopus is investing in the right people. This really is crucial, because every successful person you've ever heard has been helped by other people. There is no such thing as a self-made man. Get yourself around people who inspire, energize, teach and support you, who not only believe in you, but who are better than you. This is how you get ahead in life. Life is about people. With that, over to Jamie.
You say you're more of a TV chef than a chef, but how do you run a successful business empire when your schedule is just so hectic?
I don't really look up to anyone for inspiration or guidance on my job. I don't believe there's anyone in the country that has to do the shit I have to do, and the scope of things that I have to do. My life is like wrestling an octopus, you know, and the only way I can be good, proficient and profitable at doing the shit that I do is by being true to my word, knowing what I'm talking about, and most importantly, working with people and gathering people that agree in the same stuff that I do. The only reason I can do what I do is because of 12 years of gathering staff. I don't lose many staff. We don't have many people leave my organisation. I'm no superstar, I'm human, and there's only so many hours in a day. I know it sounds romantic, but I don't really start, in my mind, I don't start businesses. It's more cultural. You know, I set the tone. There's beliefs, there's expectations, there's a dream. That's what we do. You know, if you look at the stuff I've done over the last 4 or 5 years, you couldn't have said, oh, that's going to work, because a lot of the stuff that I've done really couldn't have, you know, regardless. So I think, you know, we try and be fairly risky in the stuff that we do. We try and push stuff. But my only advice is invest in people, treat them right, pay them right, incentivize them right, give them clear goals, and then you might have a go at, you know, doing what you want, which is what I try to do. But it is complicated. It's all about people. The recession has made us all look inwards in different ways. And even for the celebrity chef, you know, there's massive strengths and massive weaknesses to having that sort of privileged position.
You may have it all worked out. You may not. But whatever the case, where you end up further down the path will most likely not be what you envision today. You could not know today, no. But as long as you follow what you like doing, diligently, and keep your eyes and ears peeled for opportunities, and have the balls to take the ones that your heart screams out at you to take, where you eventually end up is almost guaranteed to be a good place. And in the slight chance that it isn't, well, at least you gave it a good shot, which is what life is all about, is it not?
How did you decide, and how did you make the leap from, I want to do more, I want to do something bigger, I want to get on television, I want to write books?
Oh, none of that. I know, because I think because I had it pretty sewn up. Like, okay, so I went to college, and it was like a fast track, like new friends from all religions, all backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, like partying, clubbing, ladies were exciting.
Probably a lot more ladies out there than there were in your hometown.
I didn't get any, but like there were just more around.
They were there.
There weren't many in the village. Lots of sheep, but you know, it was a very exciting time. But the great thing for me was because I had always been so bad at the theoretical part. I mean, without sounding sort of, it will sound pretty. I was breezing through the practical. It was not even 20% effort for me, I have to say. Because I just done it for 5 years, you know, but not just done it theoretically, like done it for customers. So I could really focus on the food science and the French and just kind of the more, you know, project building and stuff like that.
Did you feel gifted in that area? Did you feel like that was your calling? Like that was so easy for you and other people struggled at that? Or
no, not
was it practice, or was it just something that came naturally?
It was just practice, mate. You know what I mean? It's just kind of if you get up and run a mile to school every day, then running a mile to school is just nothing. It's like, it was, but I did love it. And I'd seen quite a bit, but it was the tip of the iceberg. So the short of college was I did really, really well, which was kind of a new thing for me. And then I got my first job in London working for a famous Italian chef who was really famous for foraging mushrooms and being like, so that whole foraging world was really exciting. So I moved to London, aged 18, and moved in with my girlfriend, and then started on a journey of sort of just inspirational restaurants, really. But in the back of my mind, I think the plan between me and my dad was he had a bit of money saved. I would go and to London, learn skills, give it 4 or 5 years, then I would come up, I'd put my savings and his savings together, we'd get a bank loan and we'd get a little pub in the country, maybe 65 covers, and kind of do my version of what Dad did. And that was honestly, that was the total plan. Signed, sealed, delivered. That was it. And I was really excited for it. And, you know, and the concept of money, I mean, when you become a chef, you do not become a chef to be rich. You don't.
No, I know.
There's no money until you're a head chef.
Right. And even then, half the chefs fail.
No, I mean, honestly, there's no one in technology that makes less money. I mean, even head chefs compared to technology, it's nothing. So you don't do it for money. So you do it because you love it or because you're lost. So I was just very, very happy with the dream of a pub in the country, probably back home near Dad, but not too close so I'd take his customers, you know. He was pretty clear about that. But then it all kind of changed one day, really, and then there was a new trajectory. And
what was that moment?
Well, someone called in sick to work on a Saturday night, and that was my day off. And on my days off when I worked in London, I'd often do private dinners to get a bit of extra cash because, you know, London's expensive. And Jules is like, no, don't go. But because I'd grown up in the family business, I had to go no matter what. It's a team. You can't let the team go down. When you're one man down on a Saturday night, 240 booked, you know, you just have to. So I went in that night, and because someone had been sick, I was in an hour late, so I had to push. And there's this bloody film crew there, and documentary film crew. And to be honest, they're in my way. They're right in my way. But sound men, cameras, asking loads of bloody questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just was focused on getting the job done. But now I look back, I know why this was a kind of sort of moment.
What was your attitude towards them? Was it like something?
Get out of my way.
Right.
So they'd ask me a question, I'd answer it really simply,
right.
And then I'd kind of push them out of the way and kind of go past and put the plate on the pass and be getting on with, because I had checks coming in, and there was hardly any room in the kitchen. But now I make TV, now I produce TV, I know exactly what happened. My two bosses at the time, who were two of the most inspirational, you know, the Alice Waters of Britain, really, Rose Gray and Ruth Rogers. Incredible cooks, amazing thinkers, you know, completely untrained and radical. They had done brilliant recipes in the filming for the show, but now I look back, they're quite hard recipes to film, and they're quite long, and they're quite hard to cut. So it's a sort of TV maker's nightmare. So they just needed some reportage, some energy, some sort of storytelling
sound
moments.
bites, something that.
But what they got from me was just like little 30-second bombs that were actually recipes. So it was just like, so they just kept putting me in the cut.
What year was this?
94.
So there was no Food Network television.
No.
Nothing was being done on TV with food at the time.
Everyone on TV was basically over 50.
And like selling like a machine or something.
Michelin stars, Chef Whites, really bad studios, kind of locked off shots,
right.
dollies. So it was a really kind of
super old school.
Yeah. Crap theme tunes. And there was one kind of guru, Keith Floyd, that was incredible. Sadly, I never got to meet him, but
so who saw this? Somebody must have saw this tape and said, "This guy's awesome."
No, they broadcast it. It went out. It went out as a documentary, but I never knew what night it went out, and I didn't know I was in the final cut. And then the next day when I came to work, everyone was like, "You were on the show last night. You were on the show last night." And then the phone calls started coming from production companies and the BBC. And I think it was Granada, which was a department of ITV, which is sort of, you know, one of the network channels, and producers, and it went bonkers. And
how did you make that call though? Like I think that there's this tough decision that you probably had to make at the time. Like, do you focus on the family business and do you go on the standard road or the same plan, or do you take this massive risk and leave everything and go focus on television?
Because there was nothing on TV that inspired me in cooking at that time, and because I was proper, you know, 20 years old, you know, like quite good at a small amount of things and overly cocky as 20-year-olds are, you know, I was like, yeah, whatever, like you do it my way or nothing, which was a really important thing because I was kind of quite single-minded about how we would film, how that we'd use music from my record collection, that I'd be in my own civvy clothes. I didn't want to cook in a studio or cook in my own home. And I wrote it down on a little bit of paper, and on that bit of paper it sort of said stripping down restaurant food to its bare essentials, and that's where the Naked Chef kind of thing came in, strip in and bare. And the Naked Chef was born and it went ballistic. Perfect time, perfect name, to have a little kid passionate about cooking. You know, I was like a little hyperactive, annoying kid that was just like mental about food.
Did you ever do any media training? Did you ever do
They tried to, but I was not really trainable. Yeah. I was kind of like, I was pretty honest and just said, I got myself in a few little bits of trouble here and there. opening my mouth. But I think the love and the passion came through, and I think, ultimately...
Do you think that's what it's about for video? For, when you look at what's being done on YouTube and everything else, it's about the love and the passion?
I think you can get away with murder if you've got a quirk, or if you're kind of single-minded. There's loads of crap stuff that's single-minded, and it does well because it's single-minded. But I think, regardless of all the clever or weird bits and pieces about things at work, I think good old-fashioned quality, values and authenticity and passion, just drip with passion. I think you can't mess with that. That's the treacle, that's the real deal. And I think looking back, to be so young and so excited about food was quite rare, or seemingly it hadn't really been expressed on British TV before, but then it was on 80 countries within a couple of years. So clearly it was not just Britain. So it is if you think about it, there's no American talent that travels outside of America, maybe Canada. So, we're on 240 broadcasters on around 80 to 110 countries, depending on the job I do.
That's crazy.
It is ridiculous. And yeah, I still can't quite fathom what happened. And I've never really this is something I haven't done in my career yet. All I've done is work hard, invest in people, invest in businesses, and sort of get amongst it, which is great. But I kind of feel like right now is a moment to take stock. There's nothing worse than a busy fool. I want to be a good dad. I want to try and be a good husband. I want to grow businesses that really matter, and hopefully inspire other businesses to do things the right way. We want to focus on what we're really good at and where we really do something that really no one else in the world does as good as us. We don't want distraction. We don't want to do good things through luck anymore or goodwill. We want to get medieval on its ass. And to do that, I've never spent any time getting to know people or meet people or actually make the effort to build relationships with like-minded people.
Is it because you're too busy in the past?
Yeah.
I'm the exact same way. I bounce around so much, and people in a really kind of lightweight, hey, it's good to see you.
And you kind of get to them eventually.
Yeah,
but the reality is life's too short for that. And I actually think the stuff I'm passionate about, the food system, public health, and actually, as far as laws and legislation in food's concerned, I don't really want much, but I do want clean water and a few basic stuff, feeding kids right in school. So to kind of fix that, I am kind of really looking to, just sort of focus, kind of find some strategic partners.
Sounds like you just want to streamline everything.
I want to streamline everything. I want to get some money in the bank. I know that sounds like a really weird thing, not a weird thing to say, but the stuff that's important to me, I can't do running I need to look at stuff and say, right, I want to do that thing. I don't want to be conservative about, I've got to be grown up and, I want to invest in things that I know we can add value and are unusual. So for that, we're looking at some strategic partners at the moment, not just cash, but strategic partners that have platforms that can amplify what we're already quite good at. And technology is a big part of it, and we're kind of just open-minded about how you plug and play brilliant content into systems that help people make better choices, help people have joyful experiences in food, but get it right most of the time, not all the time. I don't want to be boring. Food's got to be loved and enjoyed, and I feel quite balanced about what food should be. But I think the general public, statistics of health tell us that we just need to just be shaded into a place where they can really enjoy food, not feel like they're not getting what they love, but make better choices, really. So that's sort of the focus. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get there. But I want to make more time to sort of meet people and also meet people that can, like, often I feel like I'm starting things and trying to add value, and I kind of want to meet some people where they can add value. Does that make any sort of sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It feels like, I mean, it's the feeling that I got when I walked into Google. You walk into Google and you meet brilliant people around you, and you're like, I can learn something from this person, versus you always having to do the teaching to someone else.
And do you know what? Like, and like, forgive me if I sound like a pretentious cock, because I'm going to sound like one. Like, I've now learned. Like, I'm not saying there's not plenty of people better than me at loads of things or whatever, but like where I am now, I'm sort of positioned in a really unique place. Like, trust is really the only thing that I have, you know, and quite good engagement with communities across a lot of countries. And I actually think a lot of people don't have that. A lot of brands don't have that. A lot of technology doesn't have that. And I think with all the best will in the world, with all the best intention, you know, I'm really worried about not getting the next 10 years right, because I think it's important. If you ever taste or eat a product that has values, that's done properly, that's delicious, that person, that family will be golden. They will be amazing people, make amazing food. If you ever meet someone that makes, you know, owns or propagates or makes soulless shit, they're always complete arseholes that don't care. And I know it's a broad statement, but it's for 15, 16 years I've never seen, you know, you go down a farmer's market and you feel just goodness and you tap into these people. So I started realizing that there was a lot more to this cooking game. And the truth is, because I was young and stupid and cocky, and I had some money in the bank, looking back, I realized that was an incredibly dangerous cocktail.
You could get sued into oblivion for
for starters, often when that happens, you end up with loads of crap up your nose or getting into trouble. And, you know, there's rock stars and people that have kind of told that story. And I've never been into that. So what I decided to do was create a restaurant called 15 that took unemployed kids, homeless kids from prison, and create a restaurant that was a legit top-end restaurant that all the profits would train those kids. And we made a documentary about it. And the documentary changed everything in British sort of, the stuff, you know, about kids and that sort of, that genre of sort of observational documentary. They loved it. It was like rated like through the roof, got people talking at work the next day, became political. Because it was about, if you give an opportunity to a child or a teenager that's been in jail for a year for thieving or drugs or fraud or GBH, you know, if you give them an opportunity, will they take it? If you give them a golden opportunity, you know, will they recognize it and take it? And of course it was both. Some of these young people took it and some of them didn't. And that was the interesting bit. Why?
Yeah.
Who, why? How do you deal with the kids at the bottom of the barrel? You know, how do you break the cycle of years of, you know, family members being in jail and stuff? And this is a problem in America and England equal.
Sure,
and actually nowhere in the world there's not a government in the world that deals with it brilliantly. We all deal with it badly. So it was a really thought-provoking series. But for me personally, let's be really honest, I didn't do it because I was a really nice, kind person. You know, I did it because I was a young, romantic, cocky kid with the idea. You know, I always say I wanted to do it and I could do it, so I did do it. And no one was going to stop me. My dad told me not to do it. He really didn't believe it. He hated the idea. He said, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You know, basically saying, you know, you know, if you fuck, that's it. You know, don't mess with it. It's done. And I deeply disagreed. So
there was a little bit of rebellion there, like people telling you couldn't do it, or
it was uncomfortable because the thing is because I was wild in the sense of just doing it, like single-mindedly. There was about 3 weeks when officially I was bankrupt, but we hadn't quite. Luckily, I got another royalty check from a book, which just saved my ass at the last minute. So, I mean, it was exciting, it was wild, it was romantic, it was risky, it was stupid, and it was the best thing I ever did. And to this day, it keeps me honest. And to this day, it's the most dangerous thing that I do, and involves loads of time and care and gets me into trouble.
If there is something you care about, some higher cause, some major or even minor issue out there in the world that is really making you itch, then try and do something about it. Do your research, seek the wisdom and support of others, make noises. Generally, there are many different approaches to problems, which means that Pacha is really important, because most of the approaches lead nowhere. Having just one door closed in your face can be off-putting, but several can be soul-destroying. So as long as you care, you'll be able to try out all of those different approaches without easily being discouraged. And eventually, you may find a way in. This type of roundabout approach can take you very far in life. One thing will lead to another, sometimes very quickly, and you can end up much further down the path than you ever dreamed of, which leads on to another point. Dreams, training, planning. These things are great, but not necessary when you refuse to give in. Here then is the 9th and final point from Jamie. How to start a revolution.
So you'd start saying something about something that was wrong, and people would write about it, and then they'd debate it, and then they'd agree, and then they'd be quoting you on a show. Yeah. So that then started this thing. And then
you're like the Banksy of the food world, kind of.
He's much more mysterious and cool, but I think what I was about 5 years in then to my relationship with the public, global public, and the problems in Britain were the same as the countries that I was broadcasting in internationally. So when we did the school dinners campaign, that was the kind of, from a campaigning, sustainable, ethical, righteous, political point of view, that's where that all began, because it was about our kids, and it was about government, and it was about how can you talk about anything else when you can't feed your kids right at school? And our kids, like the American kids and many other Western kids, were getting really ill really quick from fixable, self-inflicted diet-related issues. So this school dinners campaign was mental in the sense that, you know, if you think about it, like, I was known and quoted, but we had no sway in government at that point. But after we broadcast 4 one-hour documentaries, and that resulted in standards created for food in schools for kids, and debate across the whole of how we look after that sort of area, and $1 billion injected into the system. That hadn't been invested in for 40 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this was big time, you know, and I wasn't quite ready for that either.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think it's about being righteous or training or wanting or dreaming. It's just like one thing leads on to another, and then if you really care about something, generally that thing has lots of different sides, and if you follow it, and if you have an audience, and if people trust you, and if you don't bloody lie, then I think they can be there for all those emotions, for the laughter, for the funny bits, you know, for the information bits, and for the really serious sort of darker bits and the political bits. So I think, you know, your audience can have different gears, really.
If you like this podcast and would like to see more of them, there are many ways you can support it. You can leave a review on iTunes, on our website, or anywhere else the podcast appears. You can share it with friends on social media or on your own blog or podcast. You can talk about it over breakfast pancakes, paleo pancakes, of course. You can purchase any books you recommend on the site using the hyperlinks, which will take you straight to Amazon. Or you can support us directly with a donation. You can do that at pressthepost.org/support. As always, thank you for listening.